Coming and welcome to the second PCC forum of the semester. I'm really excited to introduce Lydia, who will be presenting Despair and Empowerment. Notice the title change. Staying present in this time of the Great Turning. So Lydia will speak for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll do she'll lead a 15-minute practice with us, and then we'll open up for us all to be in dialogue. And the dialogue is not only just a time for you to ask questions of Lydia, but also for us to just be in conversation with each other. So we may even kind of face each other so we can have more of that conversational atmosphere. I asked Lydia if she could speak on her work with Joanna Macy, because personally I just wanted to hear about it, and I love watching Lydia talk about her work with Joanna. Her eyes light up, you can see the passion that she brings to this work. Lydia is a very recent graduate from this program, from PCC. In May. Yeah. And she is a facilitator with Joanna Macy in the work that reconnects. And they've had recent workshops at the Berkeley Community College, Esalen Institute, and on the Navajo Reservation in Shiprock, New Mexico, where Lydia's also done work in food sustainability and First Nation land restoration. And the people that she has drawn inspiration from, of course, are professors here at CIIS, as well as Thomas Berry and Bill Plotkin, and all those in the world that are working together to bring about a more just and sustainable world. And I just wanted to take this quote from Lydia about the work that she's doing, and that she says about herself, and that is, "With vast humility, Lydia hopes to help awaken the vast potential of the human within herself and others to participate in the healing of our world." So I'm going to let her do just that.
Carrying on the tradition of the forum so that we can have this platform to speak to things that we're passionate about. It is true, I am passionate about being present to the story that's going on our planet, learning how to be a human being and how to be the earth, trying to feel into what's going on and participate in a healthy way with the healing of our world. I met Joanna 3 years ago here in Sean's class. Sean Kelly taught a class with her called The Great Turning, and I was deeply moved right away and felt really drawn because for me personally, when she started speaking to pain on behalf of the planet, I started crying immediately because I realized that for years and years I had been carrying this weight in my heart that I never named. And at the moment, I remember when she was introducing the class and started talking about it, I don't know if you remember, I barely got through my name. And I was sobbing, and everything that I had felt, the pain of my father, watching him try and work within the system, knowing that it's not how life is truly supposed to be lived, homeless people on the street, just images of everything was just with me in that moment, and something collapsed within me, and I knew that this was something I wanted to expand upon more. And as I followed it through, I've been able to so generously learn with Joanna and participate in workshops with her and help and assist in some workshops, and this is my passion and what I hope to be able to bring out more into the world, is this conversation. So we live at this time. It's a pretty incredible time to be alive. It is hard and it is difficult, and it is also fascinating because it seems to be the first time, the only time since human beings arrived on this planet that we have faced a crisis like this. Simultaneously, we are facing this crisis and facing an inability to talk about it. We live in a society where we want to be strong, and we want to be on the upswing, and we want to be successful, and there is this understory that's underneath. It's barely impossible to go anywhere in the world now without witnessing the wounding of our world. It's so substantially integrated into products, places, our homes, our power, our food, our water, our bodies. But we are kind of, I grew up being told to carry on business as usual. So there's these three stories that we can look at. We can look at what's going on our planet under these three stories. So the first is business as usual. Go to your jobs, make some money, have a career path, have a goal. The Industrial Growth Society is the name that was given to our modern industrial complex by Sigmund Kiviloy, who's a Norwegian eco-philosopher. Industrial, since the Industrial Revolution, the arrival of our industrial way of living and being able to produce things. Growth, the growth of wisdom, the growth of beauty. No, it's the growth of one thing alone, the growth of corporate profit. So this system, the Industrial Growth Society, wants infinite growth, but there's finite resources. That doesn't seem to be talked about. So there's our first problem. Business as usual is we will be provided for, we will be comfortable, we can have ample comforts in the world as long as we do a handful of things. We use our vital energy every week to work to keep the system going. When you work from 9 to 5, 6, 7 days a week, that's your vital energy. That, for me, that's the time of the day where I'm the most present, I can give the most, I can do it. And we live in a system where the majority of Western society is spending that time keeping the system going and are told to do that. This is not a damnation, this is not saying anybody's wrong, I'm just saying what I observe is going on. So, spending our vital energy keeping the system going, consume. When the crash happened, when the bailout was in Congress, what were we told to do? We were told to go buy more. We were told if we wanted our economy to revive itself, we needed to go and consume and buy more products. Consume, obey, and be quiet. Don't speak up. Don't challenge. Especially nowadays, feeling it more. What's happening on Wall Street, so amazing. Don't you feel kind of like, finally, like a group of us are in the street saying something, you know? I feel it. I don't know if it's just because I'm 29 and I wasn't there for the 60s and the 70s, but I just feel like, oh my God, thank goodness somebody is we're going out there on the street and saying, okay, like this is wrong, you know? So that's the first story, business as usual. The second story, which I think everybody in this room is conscious of, is the great unraveling. The unraveling of life systems, of ecosystems, of family systems, of economic systems. We live in a time where we can see evidence of this and the acceleration of it. That's the time we live in. We can see the acceleration of the destruction of the planet. It's amazing. It really is. That we can bear witness to this story that's going on. I don't think I have to give too many examples of the great unraveling. I think we all know them and we feel them, and giving words to them doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. And then the third story is the story of the great turning. And by the way, these are things that I've learned from Joanna. These are part of teachings that I've learned from her. I didn't really introduce her, but I'll say a little bit about her over the course of our time together. The great turning is a term that was coined by David Corton in his book titled of the same name, and it refers to a turn from the potential of this time for us to shift globally as a society. There were 2 other times in human history when this happened. 10,000 years ago, the agricultural revolution forever changed in a specific way how human beings lived on the planet, and 250 years ago with the Industrial Revolution, which again changed dramatically. The revolution that has to happen now, you can call it an ecological revolution, you can call it the Great Turning, but it has to happen pretty quickly. That's one of the conditions that I and a lot of people seem to observe, is that the agricultural revolution took centuries, the industrial revolution took decades to catch on. The ecological revolution seems like it's going to need to catch on pretty quickly. Paul Hawken wrote a book, Blessed Unrest, where in a wonderful way he says, I have counted at least 1.5 million organizations that are working on behalf of social and ecological justice in the world. So that's an example of the Great Turning. It's all of those things internally and externally that we are participating in to shift ourselves from a society that uses Earth as resource and sewer to Earth as our larger living body. We don't have to destroy the Earth in order to meet our needs. We didn't for a really long time. I didn't grow up knowing that, but I'm remembering that. And I think that our ability to pay attention to the unraveling helps us know that more. I feel the disjointedness of it. And when I learn about those things that are how I can live in more harmony with less harm to the planet, I feel my humanness more. I feel my relationship to the deer and the squirrels and the owls and the redwoods and the earth that's under my feet, underneath this building somewhere. I feel it more. And I think a lot of people do. So I'll go through this really quickly. The thing about the Industrial Growth Society, it's dependent upon our participation. And it relies upon us believing that we are separate selves, that we need to create all of our own resources on our own, and it thrives on our acceptance of scarcity. It thrives on us consuming. It thrives on us buying products. The Industrial Growth Society does not necessarily want me to share my tomatoes, which I brought today, with you. It wants me to go out and buy them. This is not sustainable, though. What's sustainable is us remembering how to be more in community, right? So the Great Turning, I'll just write really quickly. Joanna lays out 3 ways that this Great Turning is coming about. The first one is holding actions. So holding actions is usually what we think of when we think of doing work in the world to stop the acceleration of the industrial growth monster. It's everything that slows the destruction down. So it's the protests in the street, it's the people working day in and day out, lobbying to try and get political changes happening. It's activist work. And it is one dimension that's really important because it slows things down so that other things that we're learning, that we're opening our consciousness to, can come in and hopefully be integrated soon enough so that we can move collectively alive into another time of human living on the planet, all of us living on the planet. Brian Swim in class one time said, we live in a time where the survival of 95% or more of the life on this planet is dependent upon human awakening. So it's not just about us. Holding actions, the creation of guidance structures, or you can just say the creation of new ways of doing things. All the sustainable architecture, sustainable business development, I mean, just the plethora of things that people are doing to try and create new ways of doing things that are more sustainable for the world. That's Gaian structures. And then the last is shifts in consciousness. I think this one's really important because a lot of the times I think we can feel like, well, I'm just talking about it, what good is that? But I feel like it's doing some good because I know that I'm learning something, but I'm not actually doing anything in the world. You are actually doing something in the world by having conversations. If we didn't have an evolution of consciousness that was with us, well, we wouldn't really be human beings. Because consciousness is an integral part of our beingness in this world. And so that looks like the classes that are taught here at the school, workshops that are given. We're conscious beings, and we tend to live into the home and the story that we create about the world in our consciousness. So if we don't know something's there, we usually don't address it, but if we integrate it into our consciousness, then we have more of an opportunity to act upon it. There's more theory that I could go into, but I am going to actually get to what I have on the title, which is despair work, despair and empowerment, how we deal with how we're feeling about what's going on in the world. I changed the title. It was from despair to empowerment, and I changed it to despair and empowerment because the despair is not something that needs to go away. It's not something that we need to tonight turn into self-empowerment and never greet again in our lives. It is an integral part of being awake and alive at this moment. We grow up, most of us, learning that our mental intelligence is the only form of knowledge that we can rely upon. And I think that this really does us a disservice when we're facing the kinds of things that we're facing, because if there is one thing that I would want anybody to take away from tonight, if you don't already feel it deep in your soul, it's that your sorrow and your anger and your fear even is not a personal pathology that needs to be medicated and needs to be gone as quickly as possible. It is a result of your interconnectedness and your love of this world, and it is an intelligent part of you that is simply responding to the crisis that you're aware of in your home, in your bigger home, on this planet. If you didn't care about the children starving in Darfur, you wouldn't feel a thing. But because you feel that pain, it is your gateway into participating even more deeply. All of our gateway, not even just yours. You are doing it on behalf of all of us. And it is all of our gateway into participating more deeply with the healing of our world. So what Joanna's work, I think, offers is, it's usually done in workshops. You can do it on your own, but I have a book here. There's just a multitude of practices that she's developed from her work with the Tibetan Buddhists, her work in the Peace Corps, her work all over the world, acknowledging the threat of the presence of nuclear contamination and what it's doing to the human population. And their practice is to bring us more in communion with these feelings of discomfort that we have, because those feelings don't need to go away. What needs to happen is for us to have a recontextualization for those feelings, and for me to be able to sit with an article about the 1.5 million deaths in Iraq, let's say, and be able to read the article. so that I can stay an informed participant in my world. Because if I can't sit with the feelings of despair, then I can't read, I can't hear, I can't take in the knowledge and the information that's necessary for me to be present with my world. Just like if you have your hand over a pot of boiling water, and if you didn't feel the pain, you would lose your hand. But thank goodness we feel the pain, and then we can take the hand away. It serves us. I'm not saying necessarily that in order to be a proper, collaborator with the healing of our world, you need to, take yourself kind of all the time to the depths of, but what I'm trying to say is that there's an imbalance happening, and there's a shame in our society around not feeling good about what's going on the planet. Not feeling good in general, but don't be a downer, you're such a pessimist, I don't want to think about this right now, I don't want to talk about it. If we don't talk about it, how are we going to get through this? And talking about it isn't a sacrifice, it's a gift. It's a gift that we get to receive that is consciousness about what's going on in our world. So that's a shift that I feel like I really want to happen. There are many understandable reasons of why people are afraid of pain, of inner pain. Afraid of being stuck in it, afraid of falling apart, afraid of being a downer, afraid of being vulnerable. Vulnerability, I was taught by our culture, is a weakness. I think it's actually a strength, because you are vulnerable because you are sensitive to what's going on in your environment. I think you can cultivate vulnerability and strength at the same time, and in fact, I think that is an amazing practice to have. So when we do these exercises, there's usually a trajectory in the course of the workshop. So I'm going to speak a little bit about that trajectory, and then we'll spend the rest of our time doing one of these practices, and hopefully it can bring something forth that is helpful to everybody. This is a quote that Matthew Fox said, who wrote an introduction to one of Joanna's books. And he said, "How can there be a return to life without the acknowledgement of death? How can there be a return to life without the acknowledgement of death? How can I know what needs to be revived if I don't know what's dying? It's a painful thing. I'm a human being. It's hard to sit with. But you can sit with it. It is possible. And it's a skill that's really needed, a cultivation that I think is really needed in our society." Okay. How's this going? Is it going okay?
Excellent.
Yeah? Am I saying things that seem kind of, what's the word? That you feel connected to it in some way? Okay. Let's do a little check-in.
Check.
If you need, desperate, no, I need to ask a question, please go ahead. It's fine. I don't mind. Okay. So the trajectory usually in these workshops, and it's just a process that, because when we ask ourselves to experience our pain for the world, we don't necessarily know what we're going to find there, and so it's good to have a container. And the reason why I love the workshops is because you're doing it with other people. You're not isolated anymore. And you see that there are other people out there who are feeling what you're feeling, because we are all part of the earth community. We are all the earth attempting to take care of herself. All of us. There is nothing you can do that separates you from the body of earth. You are of this planet. As much as there's lots of theories and people out there who say, I'm from the Pleiades and I I came from Vega and I'm here for, whatever, 80 years, and I'm here to bring a message. Okay, and you are radically of this planet, and I think it's really important for us to stay on this planet, as difficult as it is, to try and feel our place in this crazy story. So that's another thing I want to say. Okay, so the trajectory of the work, usually, so there's 4 parts, and there's practices that correlate with each of the parts. We start with gratitude, as many cultures do. Okay, so the trajectory is that you start with gratitude. Gratitude can be your lifeline when you're really trying to radically face stories about what's going on our planet that are rather difficult. We start with gratitude. It's to ground us, as many traditions have done for the history of human existence, and I think it's really good to remember that every breath that I take is a gift. I don't know what comes after this. I don't know what came before this. There are lots of theories. Maybe I'll reincarnate. I don't know. All I do know is that I'm alive right now. I can feel, I can hear, I can touch, I can see, I can smell. I'm alive right now. And I feel like gratitude is that lifeline that brings us to where we are. If we're all just really grateful right now for this room that we have and this space that we can share together, the earth that's somewhere under us under this building that's holding us up, our parents for birthing us into this world, our teachers for educating us, just, you see what I'm saying? Like, all the things that have brought you to this present moment, I feel more here. I feel more conscious. So there are gratitude practices that kind of just like get everybody there. And then we go into the despair work, and there's different exercises for that. The despair work, it's not about catharsis. It's not about getting rid of the pain. It's not about having a grand, like, expulsion of all your pain and suffering out into the universe to be transformed by the planet. What it's about is that there's this knowing inside of us, and that suffering is part of that knowing. Compassion means to suffer with. So that suffering is part of that knowing that you have within you. And when you unlock it, there are gifts there for us. There are things we have known about our entire lives that maybe we've never gotten to because we've never actually gotten to honor our pain for the world. I've gotten A's for writing papers on, Great Expectations. I've been honored for playing violin. I've been honored for all these, but my pain hadn't been honored. And man, when I opened up to it, there were gifts for me there, and it transformed me. And now I feel more present, and I have much more motivation to spend 25 cents more on a local organic apple than on an apple that came all the way from Florida on a truck when it was picked when it wasn't ripe. Because I realized that we have another story that it is a sacrifice for us to make changes to live more sustainably with the planet. And it's not that you have to override your entire life and change everything about it. It's a great practice and compassion for yourself also, for the things you cannot change. It's also systematic. Do the best you can. Where was I?
Honoring your pain.
Yeah, honoring your pain, it lends itself to bringing you into deeper communion with the things that you love, that you are feeling pain on behalf of, that you want to be in communion with anyway. The suffering is the gateway to get there. And it's a shame to have to feel it alone. It's a shame to have to be afraid of it. We should be holding each other in it, I think. It's not good, I know, to say shoulds, but that's my should. So honoring our pain, reclaiming our place in Earth's life system. If we've been living in this abstract way where we're just kind of like walking on a planet that randomly got together and we're just randomly here going through this thing, you know, that could be a little disconnecting and disconcerting, but when you honor your pain, a lot of people can experience a radical coming back into their place on the planet, reclaiming their place in the living Earth system rather than living on a dead planet. Honoring our pain, we can speak on behalf of others that can't speak for themselves, which I think is really important. It's a gift that we have, that we can do that on behalf of other creatures that can't speak for themselves, and I think they need us right now. When Thich Nhat Hanh was asked, what do we need to save our world? He said, rather than a strategy or some kind of action that needs to happen, he said, what we most need to do is to hear within us the sounds of the earth crying. Yeah, it's a gateway to communion. And you can fall apart. And it's not necessarily pretty. But I feel like if you can do it with others, then there's more synergy going on to carry all of us through it. If I'm somewhere and somebody's having a huge breakdown about what's going on the planet, and there's 5 of us there who can hold it, that is a gift to me and a gift to the person. And they might not necessarily be able to do it alone. Maybe they would be at their house and they would go crazy. And they would do something that they shouldn't do. But because we are in community, radical community, that we can do these things together. We can face these things. And it is a facilitation for action. When I feel when I feel my compassion, I am more inclined to act on behalf of something. And that's really important right now. Really important for all of us to participate in that way. And then, okay, I went a lot longer than I thought I was going to, but
We started later too.
okay, good. All right. And so after honoring our pain, usually there are some shifts that can happen for people that in the Buddhist tradition, it's called, Joanna calls it the tantric flip, which I think is really awesome. In Mahayana Buddhism, it is termed parinamana, turning over, and described as filled with jubilation and dedication to the welfare of all. We turn around or turn over into wider awareness of who and what we are. We turn around or turn over into wider awareness of who and what we are. I love that. I totally experienced that. Because you're acknowledging your connection. You become more than yourself. You are more than yourself. We are our relationships. We're not isolated creatures, all living alone, creating our own realities in our own little sphere. We're so interconnected. We're so interrelated. And the communication of what's going on the planet is just so important. And the training that it can bring. It's not about just me going to artists and be like, did you know about this, this, and this, and that, and this is this? I need to tell you this for your own good. It's not about that. There's a training, an internal training that is required at this time. I'll read a little bit about it later. That allows me to learn the things that I can cultivate and learn from sharing that information with Artemis and sharing what it brings for us. It will bring us into deeper communion, usually, I think, in my experience. And then the last is going forth. And so there's a lot that's discussed in the course of a workshop, and it's not about just keeping it to the workshop, it's about taking it outside of the workshop also. So intention setting can be really powerful. There's exercises. There's this one exercise where you're asked a bunch of questions about your intentions, and then somebody reads it back to you, kind of like your marching orders. It's pretty powerful. Yeah, and just the conceptual shifts as well as the emotional shifts. The concepts can help hold the emotional body and vice versa. That's the power of the relationship between the mind and the heart. The heart can hold the mind, and the mind can hold the heart. Okay. So that's pretty much my experience and a little bit about what I've learned from Joanna and why I feel this work is really important in the world. I feel like a lot of us are in isolation about this, and it's time to come out of the closet. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a practice of Joanna's called the milling. It's about 15 minutes. Usually there's a series that go in the course of a workshop, but I decided that it would be really awesome for us to do something together. It's not that long. So we're going to be walking around the room. So if we can take all the chairs and we can put everything as much to the side of the room as we can. So yeah.